In today's episode, we are going to be breaking down a really foundational concept that is key to so much of my work in this world and just really key to creating the life that you're desiring and ultimately discovering who you truly are, removing and unraveling all that conditioning and survival patterns to really figure out who's you at your core. So I'm really excited to share it with you because when I discovered this concept back in 2018, it blew the lid off things for me because it really showed me what was possible and all the ways that I was holding myself back and identifying with things that weren't actually serving the version of me that I knew to be true, and really just enabled me to become so much more of who I actually am and to create the things that I really wanted to create in my life and see maybe why I wasn't feeling the way I wanted to feel or why I was stuck in certain areas, and ultimately be able to shift things to then create what I was really desiring in my life. So I want from this episode it's my intention that you really feel empowered, that you can create change, that you aren't stuck in certain ways of being. Of course, if you love them, by all means, I want you to keep them if you feel that they are true to you. But as you're listening to this, if this sparks something, if you're feeling like, oh, wait, I never actually really resonated with this didn't really feel like me, I want you to know that you have the power to shift it, that we 100% can change. If you've been stuck in certain patterns or ways or feel like you're settling or life just is or whatever it might be, I want you to know that that's not finite and it doesn't have to stay that way. And if you've been wondering like, why can I create what I want, or why can I feel the way I want to, or why is life, again, just a certain way, whatever it might be, or why do people seem this way, or whatever it is, I want you to know that we're going to talk about how to shift that too. And that's not fixed. A lot of times we take things in our lives as fixed: our personality, our identity, ways of being, our finances, the people that we surround ourselves with, whatever it might be. Because oftentimes we're told, I don't know if this happened to you when you were growing up, but we're always told, right, you can't change, or you are who you are, or they'll never change, or whatever it might be. But you have so much power to remove whatever isn't serving you, to unidentify with things, and to realize who am I actually and what is serving me in the best way for what I really want to create in my life. It was one of the most liberating things for me, and I want that for you too. So today we are going to really build on all of that. We're going to talk about this concept called your baseline. Before we get into it, I want to just ask you to do a little scan within your life. And think about one area, whether it's your relationship, your finances, your work, your health, wherever it is, where you keep kind of hitting that same wall or landing in the same place, no matter how much you try. You got it? And then I want you to think about something you've always said or thought about yourselves that starts with, I've always been, ... or I'm someone who, whatever it might be, something that you've really accepted as a fixed truth about your personality. And just think about what that is. Maybe even something that you've said that you don't really love about yourself that you would maybe be open to shifting or letting go of. You got it? Cool. Now, I just want to say this may shatter your mind a little bit. So if so, I really encourage you to notice if your ego is fighting back and just keep your mind and heart open for what I'm going to share with you. Because if you do, and if you can really allow this concept to land for you, it can change a ton of things. So with that, we are going to be talking about your baseline. So what your baseline actually is we can think about it kind of like an invisible thermostat that is controlling your life, that controls what you settle for, how much joy you allow, who you think you are, and what you believe that you're ultimately available for in life. And it governs your comfort zone, the edges of what feels familiar and therefore safe, and who you know yourself to be at the most fundamental level. Most people don't realize that they're operating from one, because it feels like reality. It truly feels like who we are. So I want us to think about the baseline as a thermostat. If you have a thermostat in a room and it's set to 72 degrees, and you open the window and there's cold air coming in, That cold air is going to come in. It's going to cool the room. The room might go down to 68, 65. And then what's that thermostat going to do? The thermostat is going to turn the room. It's going to shift the room back up to 72 degrees. Same with if you have that thermostat set for 72 degrees and you open the window and there's really hot air coming in and it starts heating up the room to 75, 80 degrees, 85 degrees. That thermostat is going to kick on and cool down the room back to 72 degrees. It's going to keep it at that homeostasis, at the set point of the thermostat. So this is what is operating in, like I said, so many areas of our lives. We have this set point that our nervous system has deemed as safe, that it's familiar. And so we start to inhabit this set point in all areas of our lives. There's different ones for different areas, but we inhabit it fully and we take it on as who we are or what is available for us and what we are available for. But that's all it is. It's just a set point where we feel safe, which means we can change it. And so this can show up in a lot of ways. So an example that where I really learned about this concept in my own life, and it really was just shocking to me, was I always used to consider myself kind of like as someone who wasn't as excitable as other people. I just didn't get so excited. I was kind of just more monotone, and that was me. And that's just how I identified. And I didn't really resonate with that about myself. I felt like there was more, like there was a lot more range. I felt like there had to be more passion. There had to be. I saw these other people with these like zest for lives and doing these big things and all excited about stuff. And I was like, no, that's me. Like I want that. How come they can have it and not me? And maybe you felt this about some different areas of your life. It wasn't until in 2018, early on my personal development journey, I went to this Tony Robbins event. And he actually talked about this because I was there and I was feeling this way that I identified as, that I really saw myself as. And then I was in this room for 5 days with people screaming and dancing and hurrahing and all this energy. And I left changed. I actually realized, wait, I am excitable. That zest for life, that is me. I just hadn't identified with it because my baseline got set, my thermostat got set at this way that just felt comfortable and familiar, that was keeping me safe. That didn't allow me to get too excited about things or too passionate and was just kind of hanging out in this liminal space. And as you can see by me sharing on this podcast, I'm sure you can tell that I'm a very excitable person. I have a lot of passion. And this is way more true to who I am. But that wasn't where my set point was at the time. So it was able to shift to become more me. This happens in so many areas of our lives. We have different patterns that emerge from survival or from our surroundings and what's deemed as normal, as comfortable, that we then take on as who we are. So you might notice this in an environment where people are they're not really striving for goals. Everyone's just like, oh, we're good here. This is it. We can't have that. Maybe for other people, but not us. Everyone talks about it. So no one is trying to really achieve anything more. Or you might hear it in someone who's the person who's like always in the go, go, go and getting things done and whatnot. And the thought of even slowing down terrifies them. Or someone who is constantly stressed and is holding so much and is always like, oh, I'm so stressed and talking about it. But they don't actually know how to calm down, or they don't actually know how to relax. Or the person who's born and grown up in such a loud environment where everyone's always screaming and people talk really loud. And so when they're in quiet, really freaks them out and they can't do it. Or when people complain a lot and they just think, that's just who I am. I just complain, things don't work out for me, whatever it might be. And if things actually did start working out, they might get a bit uncomfortable. We identify in these ways of, I'm an anxious person. I'm lazy. Oh, that's just not for me. I'm not that type of person. Or, I'm super type A or really stressed or whatever it might be. Think of the things that you've identified as. But we don't realize that these are just baselines. This is just where our nervous system has felt safe. So what I was touching on a bit is that person who's go, 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 their nervous system and all those people that I shared, everyone's nervous system is actually just set at that point. That has just become the comfort zone. That is what's familiar. So then when you're trying to place yourself into an unfamiliar environment, like when you're go, 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 and all of a sudden you're trying to stop and not do anything and stay still, that chaos of the movement or that movement feels so much more comfortable to your nervous system than actually being able to rest. So when you actually give yourself the time to rest, you can't do it. You check your phone, you check email, you start thinking about things. It gets really uncomfortable. Another one that people say is, I'm an overthinker. No, that's a safe place. And so that's all it is. And so, which means we can shift all of this. And think about this, because people always say, oh, I want a vacation. I need a vacation. I just want to relax. But what happens? If you're not someone who has actually gotten your set point to be somewhere that's relaxing, and I know this from my own experience, I've really worked this one, you go on that trip and what? You do not relax. Things happen. You end up booking your whole schedule with like a whole itinerary of things for you to do. Or you end up dealing with a lot of family chaos, or like you lose your credit card, or something might happen, or you're constantly checking your work emails or your phone nonstop, right? Facebook, social media, whatever it might be, or working there, because that's actually where you feel safer doing all of that. Even if consciously you think you want to relax, your system doesn't actually feel safe to allow yourself to relax because of that baseline. We take on all of these identities based on this. But I hope what you're getting from this, what you're seeing, just like how I took on the identity of not being so excitable, it's just become our baseline where our nervous system feels safe. It's not actually who we are, which means we can shift it. Over our entire lives, these patterns can build and these ways of being because they're so normalized in our society and who we're around. And then people reflect back to us as well that we are this way and we take it on. So these patterns, these ways of being can really get ingrained in our personality. But ultimately, when we now have this knowledge to see, whoa, this is just my baseline. This doesn't mean it's who I am. That's how we can shift it. And that's how we can start to, again, take agency of our lives and of ourselves and really allow ourselves to be nourished in who we are. So again, we're not anxious per se. It's just we've done this pattern so much that that's how we've identified as, and we will fight for whatever we can to keep our identity. And in the stress, right, we're not necessarily always stressed. People are always go, go, go. It's just a pattern that's really come to be safe. That's something I really used to identify with, the go, go, go. And I had to rewire it a lot. It took me a lot to shift that baseline because there was so much worth and just identity and achievement and in that being who I was. And so I started to rewire that, which took time, and realizing, whoa, that's not actually who I am. I don't always need to go, go, go. But it was so scary to my system at first to slow down because it had been so normalized that way. So I was able to shift it to actually, again, figure out what's more true to me, which was more of this being and, still, of course, getting stuff done, but doing so in a different way felt way more nourishing to me. So we don't even realize that these aren't who we are because it's been so normalized. We don't realize that there's another way, or we don't even realize that sometimes that we're operating in these states because it's just become who we think we are. And I really want to impart on you, again, this is your baseline, not who you are. Which means we can shift your baseline. It's just what's become comfortable, who you've known yourself to be. That's it. And from that foundational understanding, you can really start to ultimately come back to who you truly are. So think about the way that you maybe were calling yourself, what you've taken on. I'm always this way, or I'm this. And see, now that you understand this concept, whoa, maybe I can shift it. Because again, right, that thermostat keeps bringing it to that 72 degrees or to whatever your identity is because it's safe. So even when we think, oh, I want quiet, or oh, I want calm, all of a sudden it brings it back because it doesn't feel safe. We'll maybe get the quiet for a little bit and then it will shift it back to the loud unless we work with this baseline. And a lot of times we take on these identities of this way, of the woman who holds it all, of needing to do everything for everyone, of all of this, but it's because it's really felt safe. It's not ultimately who we are at our core. We might think it is because that's what a lot of mainstream talk is. But if it's something you want to shift, I want you to know that you have the power to do so. I have changed so much in my life through this concept. It was so eye-opening to me, and I've become so much more who I am at my core because of it. And another way that this can show up is we have that thermostat, we have that baseline in all areas of our life. So when you think about it, one way this showed up for me was I shared a lot about my journey in the last episode, and I really wanted to feel joy. It was like I could not feel joy. It was so hard for me to feel that way. I started to try to feel joy. I'd be in these beautiful places, traveling the world, trying to feel joy, and I'd feel it for maybe a minute, and then a negative thought would come in. Or I'd try to be present for a second, and then a negative thought would come in. Because it was safer to my system to actually constantly, the nervous system's always scanning for threats to make sure we're safe. That felt safer than allowing myself to actually feel that joy. It didn't feel safe. So I really had to work to shift my baseline in order to feel that. A lot of times this happens with finances. People will have a set financial point. This is why lottery winners will win big, and then what? Because they don't change their set point, they often end up losing the money quite frequently and very soon after, and end up with the same that they had or a bit less as well, because that's where their set point is. That's their baseline. Same with if you're someone who has a certain baseline in finances and you start making more money without shifting the baseline, somehow you end up having a bigger debt or a bigger expenditure that you have to spend, and you end up getting back to that baseline. Or if you make less money, you'll rise back up to where that baseline is. And you've probably seen this in your own life. Or in your relationship, you might say, oh, I want my relationship to be like so intimate and so amazing, where we never fight, where we're just so happy all the time and lovey-dovey. But it might feel so uncomfortable to your system that when it gets like that, you question it and you're like, is something off? Why is he being this way to me? Why is he being so nice? What's happening? Why are we getting along so well? This is weird. Or you subconsciously will actually start a fight to bring you back to that baseline because that feels more comfortable. So you can see this concept is very subconscious. We might think we want something because logically it might make sense. I don't want to fight in my relationship, but we actually feel safer when we have that conflict. This can show up with our own relationship to ourselves. When life starts feeling really good, or when we start being really nice to ourselves, it might be like, wait, no. And that actually can feel really unsafe, like the joy I was talking about. And all of a sudden we'll start looking for the other shoe to drop, or feeling like uncomfortable with it, like there's something has to go wrong. Or we start beating ourselves up as well to bring it back to that homeostasis. This could also show up because I know we have a lot of people probably in the audience that do this. So I wanted to share because I know this was a big one for me. But in overgiving, if you're constantly an overgiver, you never feel like you're doing enough, and you really want to not do that consciously, but it feels so safe to do that, you might keep doing that and it might feel really hard to actually receive. And that doesn't feel comfortable because that's not your set point. Or constantly having to put output and thinking like for us high achievers, right, we have to do in order to get the result. That could be what our set point and what our nervous system feels, where when results actually come to us or where it's easy. How about the concept of life has to be hard, or we have to work really hard? That's a big one. And that could feel so much normal, right? We have to earn it. That feels really resonant in our system. That feels safe. So then when we don't earn something, or when we stop working so hard and maybe come back to our bodies and shift the way we're showing up, it's like alert, alert, alert. Come back to that baseline. This happens a lot in business. I work with a lot of people who want to scale, but only have a certain baseline for success. And so when it gets higher, they self-sabotage and bring themselves back to that baseline. Or again, other side of it, right? If it gets lower than what they're used to and what their baseline is for success for their career, it brings them back up. And so what I want you to get from this as well is we, again, might consciously want to show up a certain way, or consciously be trying or feel one way about the way we are showing up. But there's such a purpose to it. It is really keeping us safe. And so when we can understand that too, and have compassion, again, and acceptance for that, for this wise system, it can allow us to start to make these shifts to be able to hold more, whether that's joy, finances, success, more life, more receiving, whatever it might be, right? Insert whatever it is that you're desiring here. And we can start to, again, take on, notice, what are we identifying ourselves with here? And can we start to separate from that identity and realize, oh, that's just my baseline. That's just where it's felt safe. That's just the thermostat, the set point. So I can actually decide to shift my identity as well to something that feels more resonant and more true to me. This is a huge piece because ultimately we think it's these other factors that are affecting us in the life that we want to create. But 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, it's literally this baseline piece. This is the foundation where our nervous system feels safe, because our nervous system does not like, again, it wants to keep us safe. It doesn't like what's unfamiliar. It doesn't like what's not comfortable, and it's going to keep us comfortable, safe, familiar. That will win every time. So we need to find ways to shift this baseline by making these other states or that we want to feel or ways of being actually familiar. Because even if we don't want them consciously, they will keep showing up, because again, that's where our nervous system feels safe. So a great way to do this, and we'll get into more ways to do this throughout this podcast, throughout different episodes. And then also we're going to have a lot more episodes on the nervous system, because it's a key piece of my teachings and of life for everyone. But one way to shift things is to just really normalize where it is that you want to go. So surrounding yourself with people, we are the 5 people we surround ourselves with. So like I was saying, if everyone around you doesn't really have goals, well, you're not really probably going to have goals, or it'd be kind of an outlier if you did. Or if everyone around you is always stressed, you're probably naturally going to start to feel more that way or think it's normal. If everyone around you tells you just have to settle, this is just how it is, that's probably going to seep into who you are. If you want to have a really amazing relationship where you're not fighting, where everything is ooh la la, and intimate, whatever it might be, whatever that is for you, then get yourself around people that do that. Start to normalize that in your system so your system doesn't freak out. So you can start to shift and raise your baseline. If you want more finances, go and actually spend time around people with the amount of wealth that you're desiring so your system can normalize it. If you want a certain level of success, get around people with it to normalize it, to allow it to feel safe. If you consider yourself really anxious, this is some deep regulation work that I do with my clients, but start to really see if you can deepen into yourself, if you can come back to yourself when you're feeling that anxious. Or if you could also say, and if I wasn't anxious in this moment, who am I? Or just, that's just the way I'm feeling. That's not actually who I am. And do that with great stress as well. I'm just feeling stressed right now, but that's not who I am. I don't have to identify with it. And see if in those moments, you can start to normalize more and more disconnecting from that identity, or getting yourself out of that autopilot of that state and allowing yourself to pull yourself back, maybe take a breath in that moment. Oh, wow, I'm someone who takes a breath here, not I'm anxious. And you can start to really anchor this in as you keep rewriting these neural pathways, as you keep getting yourself into what maybe is currently unfamiliar into these familiar places, to start to shift the ways that you've been telling yourself that you are or what is possible for you, to again start to really take agency and ownership for who you be, who you truly are, and what you want to create in your life. We fight for what is safe. Our nervous system will fight to keep us safe. So it's going to keep us safe until we make these new patterns actually safe, which a great way, again, is surrounding ourselves with them, or kind of micro shifting ourselves in these environments. That's like what I did in the Tony Robbins event. And then there's other ways that we can shift this baseline through deeper work that we do within the nervous system. Really recognizing, okay, where have I felt stuck? Where have I wanted to shift that set point? And start noticing, I actually can. This is why I've been stuck. This is why it hasn't changed. And where have I been seeing myself in this way and thinking, okay, wow, well, maybe again, this isn't me. I have felt this disconnect for a reason. Maybe I could see another side of it. Maybe I could show up differently. And just even opening that bit of possibility to know, like, I don't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. And seeing what you want to create right from that place, what could start to evolve as you just start breadcrumbing those thoughts. Again, the key piece of my work with everything is to come to really love yourself, to accept yourself, to have that compassion. So this is not meant to make you feel any way or make you feel like you're not enough in any way at all. You are so enough exactly how you are. This is simply for you to take, if there's parts of you that you absolutely love, oh my gosh, keep those. They're amazing. They're you. If there's parts of you that you don't really feel resonant with, or that you've always, you feel like, as I'm saying all this, maybe this is just a survival pattern. Maybe this has just been an adaptive strategy. Maybe this is just because of the environment that I'm in and who I'm surrounding myself with and what I'm consuming and what society has said. And maybe there is something different for me. Maybe there is another level accessible, or maybe there is another way for me to start operating in this world. then that is what I want you to take and really just allow this to open up those possibilities for you to really start to shift that, to realize, I can change. Life isn't fixed. My personality isn't fixed. It doesn't have to be this way. My identity isn't fixed. I'm free to create more of what I desire in my life and ultimately come back to more of me, whoever that might be for you. And on the other side of this, if you've ever thought to yourself, why can't I just relax? Or why can't things be easier or be more calm or whatever it might be? Why can't I make more money? Why can't I have more joy? Whatever it is, I want you to also know that this is why, that it's not as simple as, I'm going to go on vacation, so I want to relax, like I said, or, I just want to feel this way because other people are feeling this way, so I'm just going to do it. It's actually more complex. And because our nervous system has been operating in this pattern for so long that it takes a lot of intentionality to really shift it. It's 100% possible, like I've said, but it does take that intentionality. And I really wanted to impart that here because I know there can be a lot of shame sometimes around why am I so anxious, or why can't I just relax like this person, or why can't I just be this way? And so with that, I want you to really have that compassion for yourself and kind of remove any shame that you might be holding as to why you can't, because like I've been sharing here, right, this is why. And it does take a process to really shift the nervous system and create that new baseline and that new comfort zone, that new safety net as well. And so for me, for example, like how I mentioned with joy, it was quite a process to be able to feel more joy and build the capacity for that. And someone last year said to me, why aren't more people just happy? It's not that complicated. All you have to do is wake up in the morning, say an intention that they want to be happy that day, and maybe put on some music, dance, and just be happy. And I was like, it's not that simple. Yeah, that would be nice. And I'm sure more people would be happy if it was that simple. But no, it actually is this whole process like I shared here. And for me, it took a lot to really build the muscle to feel that joy. And so I want you to know, if you have been desiring to feel a certain way and you haven't been able to access it, or you have been desiring to create something in your life and you haven't been able to, I really want you to know that I see you in that and I really get what it's been like, and that, I honor you in that process. And I want you to really give yourself that permission and remove any shame in that, and give yourself that acceptance for who you've known yourself to be, and that this process of shifting can be more complex. It's not you. So it's not something you need to beat yourself up about or be frustrated that you haven't been able to change. Just know that it is possible. And again, it's with this process. So I want to share that to just remove any shame that you may be carrying, any guilt, any judgment, any of that on that piece too. I hope that a lot of light bulbs are going off here, because when we can understand this, when we get, this is just the baseline for what's felt safe for how I've been operating, but it doesn't have to be who I am moving forward or what I have in my life moving forward. This opens up so many doors. And as these light bulbs go off, right, this is such a huge piece, because you can start to relate to yourself differently and you can start to see what's possible. And a lot of times people don't realize this until some huge life event happens that ultimately makes them think about everything differently. And those aren't always the most fun to deal with. So I really wanted to introduce this concept to you here so that without all of that needing to happen, you can just start looking at your life and really starting almost with a scientist, right? Look at that data like, is this me, or is this just, again, my baseline? Is this just how, again, society, my upbringing, the news that I'm watching, what I'm consuming, all of it, what feels normal, who I'm surrounded with, that's how I've identified myself, and I don't have to be. Or that's just what I've told myself is possible in my life, or possible in my relationship, possible in my finances, possible in my career, or whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be that way. So I invite you to start to scan for that. Scan for ways that you've identified as. Scan for ways that you've said your personality is just like this. Scan for ways that you've really attached yourself to characteristics that might be limiting for you. Or scan yourself for ways that you maybe have tried something in your life and you keep getting stuck at it and you can't get to where you want to go. Again, whether that's in your relationship, career, finances, your relationship with yourself, whatever it is. But just start to look at that with this eye, with this new lens, really seeing that and seeing, wow, how wise. My nervous system has been keeping me safe here. It's this set point that we've created. or it's just been so normalized that this is just who I am, right? Sometimes it's not always keeping us safe. It's just, this is normalized. And so this just over time just became who I was and became what I was comfortable with. And now you get to start saying, do I want to make a little unfamiliar? Do I want to shake things up? What do I want to shift here? And is there anything? And who am I truly? And what am I meant to create in this life? What am I meant to experience in this life? If I want to be lit up by life, if I want to be fully nourished, what is it in this baseline concept that now that I understand this, that I can start to tweak? I hope that you got a ton from this episode because, like I said, when I started learning about this concept, it really shifted things for me and really showed me what was possible, not only in who I was and how I was showing up in what my personality was, but also what I could create in this life and really the limits got removed because I understood that I could do this work to start to change things and shift things, and nothing was stuck, nothing was set. That I had way more agency and way more capabilities than I even knew to shift the things that I really want to do, to set life in my favor. And that I didn't have to identify with these ways that were just holding me back. And I got to, again, unravel that conditioning, break past the mold and peel back the onion to figure out who I truly am and what I'm really here to do in this world. So once again, just your baseline, it is just a set point. It is what has become comfortable, that thermostat. So take this. It's not who you are. It's not what is possible for you in life. It's currently what you're available for, but it's not what is literally out there for you. So I want you to take this principle with you to just start auditing each area of your life and each characteristic that you've said about yourself. Just really see, oh, it makes sense. This is actually why I'm like that. So it just became normalized so I can shift it if I want, right? Oh, this is why this hasn't worked out this way for me. Oh, okay, I'm aware now so I can start to shift it. And even that awareness itself is so powerful and can create change in that too. So just really leaving you with that. You can change. You can change your circumstances. You can change your situation. You can change who you've believed yourself to be. You can change. And I hope that feels just as empowering to you as that has always felt to me. Just because you've been operating one way or life has been one way for you does not mean that it is how it will need to continue to be. So utilize this as the foundation, really as the core. Re-listen to this episode, really open it with a different lens of, whoa, I can shift, I can change. And even just that opening is going to be a huge foundation for everything else I'm going to share with you in this podcast. And really for the basis of so much of what you want to create in your life and who you want to become as you keep rooting deeper and deeper into yourself, into who you truly are, outside of, again, the survival, the conditioning, all of it, who you've known yourself to be, and truly coming back to who you were always meant for at your core. If this episode resonated with you, I would absolutely love if you could like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review as well. It is my mission to support as many women as possible in truly coming back to themselves, rooting into who they truly are, and ultimately become nourished in all areas of their lives. I would absolutely love for you to join me on that mission and help spread this podcast to anyone who you feel that it would be supportive for. Also, it would mean the world to me if you could reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is in the show notes, and let me know how this resonated with you, what you are loving in the podcast, and what you would like to see more of as well, so we can deepen the relationship over there. If you'd like to take these principles deeper and really embody them on a next level in your own life, I invite you to join my email list. The link is in the show notes. I will be emailing you each week. I host live webinars digging even deeper into these concepts and how you can practically apply them into your own life so that you can fully become lit up by life, nourished in all areas, and really embody all of the principles that I share here on this podcast. So again, the link is in the show notes to join. I would absolutely love to have you on there. I provide a ton of value on my list, different practices you can do each week, the webinars that you can tune into, and a lot of other fun goodies as well. And you'll be the first to know about podcast episodes too. So again, hop on over to my email list so that I can fully support you even further, and let's get nourished.